The mahogany doors of my father's study felt heavier than I remembered. Maybe it was the weight of what waited on the other side. A room full of people who'd spent years pretending I didn't exist, gathered to divide up what remained of Vincent Richards' empire. I'm Claire, the daughter who dared to question, to challenge, to be different. The ungrateful one, they called me. Now here I stood, 31 years old, about to face them all again. "Miss Richards?" The family lawyer, Mr. Patterson, gestured for me to enter. "We're ready to begin." I stepped into the familiar study, the scent of leather and old books hitting me like a physical force. Christian sat in my father's chair, of course he did, while Aunt Julia perched nearby, her perfectly manicured hands clasped in her lap. Willow offered a slight smile from her corner, quickly looking away when her brother shot her a glance. "Now that everyone is present," Patterson began, adjusting his glasses, "we'll proceed with the reading of Vincent Richards' last will and testament." I remained standing by the door, arms crossed. No one offered me a seat. "To my beloved nephew Christian," Patterson read, "I leave the family estate, including the vineyard and all associated businesses, along with liquid assets totaling $2.4 million. Christian's smile grew wider. Julia dapped at her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. "To my daughter, Claire." Patterson paused, clearing his throat. "I leave this message. You are never grateful enough to deserve a legacy. Your constant questioning of family traditions and values has shown me that you cannot be trusted with what generations have built. Perhaps this final lesson will help you understand the cost of defiance." The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. "That's it?" I heard myself ask, my voice steadier than I felt. "Nothing else?" "There are some personal effects," Patterson continued, "which have been designated for various charitable organisations." "The locket?" I interrupted. "My mother's locket?" "That's been allocated to the family collection," Christian said smoothly. "Where it belongs." I looked at him then. Really looked at him. My cousin sat there in his tailored suit, not a hair out of place, wearing the same expression he'd had the day of my mother's funeral, practiced concern, masking satisfaction. "You know she wanted me to have that," I said quietly. "Your mother's wishes were rather confused near the end," Julia interjected. "We all know that, dear." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. I'd heard rumours about those final days, about documents being signed, about my mother's increasingly agitated state. "Well," I said, straightening my shoulders, "I suppose that's that." "There is one more thing," Patterson added, pulling out an envelope. "Your father requested this be read aloud." My stomach tightened. One final twist of the knife. "Und, Claire," Patterson read. "If you're here, it means you still harbour some hope of claiming what isn't yours. Let this be clear. Your mother's share of the estate, which you so desperately believed would pass to you, was legally transferred before her death. There is nothing left for you here. Nothing was ever yours to claim." Christian stood, buttoning his jacket. "I think we're finished here. Shall we move to the dining room? The staff has prepared brunch." The others rose, filing past me like I was already gone. Only Willow hesitated. "Claire," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I watched them go, their voices fading down the hallway. Through the study window, I could see the vineyard stretching toward the horizon, rows of vines my mother had loved, where she'd taught me about patience and growth and timing. Patterson began gathering his papers. "Ms. Richards, if you'd like a copy of the documentation—" "No," I said, turning toward the door. "I won't need it." I walked slowly through the house, past the family portraits where my face had been gradually excluded, past the kitchen where my mother used to sneak me cookies after father's rages, past the grand staircase where I'd last seen her alive. Their laughter drifted from the dining room as I reached the front door. Christian's voice rose above the others, already discussing his plans for modernising the vineyard operations. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, and whispered words meant only for myself. Enjoy it while it lasts. The morning sun hit my face as I stepped outside. I didn't look back at the house, didn't need to. I knew exactly what I'd see. Everything they thought they'd taken from me, everything they believed they owned. They had no idea what I'd learned in the years of exile, no idea what I'd built, what I'd discovered. They thought this was an ending. I smiled, walking to my car. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. 3 months after the will reading, I sat in a small office overlooking the Pacific, watching my new lawyer review documents I'd spent years collecting. "This is interesting," Kenneth said, spreading papers across his desk. Very interesting. I sipped my coffee, waiting. Kenneth wasn't like the polished attorneys my family employed. His office was modest, his suit off the rack, but his eyes missed nothing. Your mother's will, he continued, was modified 3 times in her final week. That's unusual enough. But look at these signature variations. He laid out 3 documents side by side. See how the strokes get progressively shakier? She was sick, I said, the memory sharp as glass. But not that sick. Not at first. Kenneth leaned back. Tell me about those days. I set down my cup. I was away at college. Aunt Julia called, said Mom was having episodes. When I got home, they wouldn't let me see her. Said she was too fragile, needed rest. Christian was always there, always in meetings with my father. And then? 3 days later she was gone. They said it was her heart. Kenneth nodded slowly, making notes. And the bank holding the estate's debt. You're sure it's struggling? I pulled out my laptop, showing him the research I'd compiled while working my quiet desk job in this coastal town. Pacific Trust Bank. They're carrying millions in bad loans. The vineyard's debt is just one piece, but it's significant. You've done your homework, Kenneth said, impressed. But buying debt notes isn't cheap, even distressed ones. I opened another file. Remember last year's cryptocurrency surge? I invested early. Made some careful moves in tech startups too. I've got the funds. Claire, Kenneth set down his pen. What exactly do you want here? The ocean stretched beyond his window, vast and patient, like my plan. I want everything they took, I said simply, and I want them to watch it happen. A knock interrupted us. Kenneth's assistant poked her head in. Sir, there's a call from the Vineyard's management office. Something about missed payments? Kenneth raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded. Put it through, he said. The speaker crackled. This is Ryder Newman, Vineyard foreman. I'm trying to reach someone about our account status. Mr. Newman, Kenneth answered, I represent an interested party. What seems to be the problem? Our operating loans are overdue. Christian assured us everything was handled, but the bank's threatening to call the note. I smiled. Christian, always better at appearances than actualities. After the call, Kenneth studied me. You knew about this? Christian's been running the place like his personal party venue. More interested in hosting influencers than managing crops. The books are a mess. And you're planning to buy the debt, I finished. Through a shell company. Once Pacific Trust starts selling off assets, we move. Kenneth whistled softly. Revenge served with paperwork. I like it. That evening, I walked along the beach near my rented cottage, remembering another conversation from years ago. I was 16, fighting with my father about college choices. You're just like your mother, he'd sneered, always wanting to change things, question things. This family has a way of doing business. Mum had found me later, crying in the garden. Listen to me, Claire, she'd said, her voice urgent. Whatever happens, remember, patience is power. They think money is strength, but timing is everything. A week later, she started acting strange. 2 weeks later, she was dead. My phone buzzed, a text from Willow. Missing you, family dinner tonight. Christian announcing big vineyard plans. Wish you were here. I didn't respond. Willow meant well, but she was still one of them. Instead, I called Kenneth. I need everything you can find about my mother's last days, I said when he answered. Medical records, visitors, especially any meetings with lawyers. Already on it, he replied. But Claire, I found something odd. The original will, the one from before that final week, it's missing from the county records, like it never existed. I stopped walking, waves crashing at my feet. How is that possible? Someone with access. Someone who knew exactly what to remove. The pieces clicked. Christian's constant presence. The locked doors, the missing documents. Keep digging, I said. And Kenneth, set up that shell company. It's time to move. After hanging up, I watched the sun sink into the ocean. Mum used to say the vineyard's best grapes came from vines that struggled, that fought through poor soil and harsh conditions. The sweetest wine, she'd tell me, comes from survivors. I took out my laptop and began typing. Offer to purchase debt notes, Pacific Trust Bank. The numbers were substantial, but I had them. Years of quiet investing, of living below my means, of preparing for exactly this moment. Somewhere inland, my family was raising glasses, celebrating their victory, never suspecting that their perfect heir was drowning in debt, or that their discarded daughter was about to become their owner. I hit send on the offer. Let them drink their wine. Soon they'd taste what betrayal had been brewing all along. The vineyard looked different in winter. Bare vines stretched like skeleton fingers against the grey sky as I walked the perimeter, careful to stay hidden behind the old storage buildings. Ryder, the foreman, was waiting for me by the abandoned wine cellar. "Ms. Rivers," he said, using my alias. "Didn't expect the bank's representative to come in person." "I like to be thorough," I replied, pulling my coat tighter. "Show me what's really happening here." Ryder led me through the property, pointing out problems Christian had been hiding. Equipment lay rusting, whole sections of vines showed signs of disease, and the new wine storage facility, Christian's pet project, stood half-finished. "He spent $400,000 on that," Ryder said, gesturing to the concrete shell. "Then the contractors walked when the checks bounced. And the workers? 3 months behind on payroll. Most stayed because of loyalty to the land, not the man." We reached the main house. Through the windows, I could see Christian hosting another of his famous tastings. Instagram influencers posed with wine glasses while my cousin worked the room. "That's his solution," Ryder spat. "Parties and promotions while everything falls apart." My phone buzzed. Kenneth sending an update. The debt purchase was complete. I now owned 71% of the estate's notes through my shell company. "Mr. Newman," I said carefully, "what would you say if new ownership took over?" He studied me for a long moment. "Depends on the owner." Before I could respond, voices approached. We ducked behind a storage shed as Christian and Aunt Julia walked past. "The bank's being unreasonable," Christian was saying. "We just need to restructure." "Darling, this is serious," Julia cut in. "If word gets out about our financial situation, and with the Legacy in Bloom gala next week..." "It's under control, Aunt Julia. Trust me." They moved out of earshot. Ryder looked at me questioningly. "Legacy in Bloom?" I asked. "Annual charity event. Biggest night of the year. Christian's invited half the state's elite. Perfect timing." I pulled out my phone and dialed Kenneth. "It's time," I said when he answered. "Get everything ready for next week." "The documentation is solid," Kenneth replied. "But Claire, there's more about your mother. The medical examiner's initial report..." "Save it for the reveal," I interrupted. "And Kenneth, make sure we have cameras." After hanging up, I turned to Ryder. "Would you be interested in staying on under new management? Someone who actually cares about this land?" He crossed his arms. "You're not really from the bank, are you?" I smiled. "Let's just say I have a vested interest in seeing this place restored to its former glory." Later that evening, I sat in my hotel room reviewing the files Kenneth had sent. Property deeds, bank statements, and most importantly, proof of the forged documents surrounding my mother's death. A knock at my door made me freeze. I wasn't expecting anyone. "Claire." Willow's voice came through softly. "I know you're in there, please." I opened the door. My cousin stood there looking nervous. "How did you..." "Ryder told me," she said quickly. "I've been helping him document everything Christian's been doing. The missing funds, the forged invoices are us." "Why?" Willow pulled out a small USB drive. "Because of this. Mom doesn't know I have it, but it's recordings. Your mother made them in those last weeks. She knew something was wrong, tried to leave evidence." My hands shook as I took the drive. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because what they did to you, to your mother, it wasn't right." Willow glanced over her shoulder. "I should go. They can't know I was here." After she left, I plugged in the drive. My mother's voice filled the room, weak but determined. "They're making me sign things I don't understand whining for Christian. Vincent says it's for the best, but something's wrong. If anything happens to me, Claire needs to know." The recording cut off. I sat in the darkness, letting years of suspicion crystallize into certainty. My phone lit up with an email. The official invitation to Legacy in Bloom had arrived, addressed to Ms. Rivers, potential investor. I opened my laptop and began typing. "Dear Mr. Patterson, as legal representative of River Valley Holdings, I am writing to inform you of our acquisition of the Richards Estate debt notes from Pacific Trust Bank. Per Section 7.2 of the loan agreement, we are exercising our right to immediate inspection of all financial records. I attached the documentation Kenneth had prepared, then added, "Additionally, we will be attending the Legacy in Bloom event to discuss the estate's future. Send." I pulled out my mother's locket, the one thing I'd managed to take before they cleaned out her room. Inside was a tiny photo of us in the vineyard, her smile bright and real. "If I'm burning this down," I whispered to her image, "I want every spark caught on film." The response from Patterson arrived almost immediately. "Welcome to Legacy in Bloom, Ms. Rivers. We look forward to your attendance." I smiled. They had no idea what was coming. Legacy in Bloom transformed the vineyard into a glittering fantasy. String lights twinkled through the vines, and white-clothed tables dotted the lawn. I adjusted my dark wig and glasses, my Ms. Rivers disguise, and moved through the crowd like a ghost. "Welcome," Christian's voice boomed from a small stage. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our heritage, but our future. I'm excited to announce our new sustainable wine initiative." I tuned out his practiced speech, scanning the gathering. Julia held court near the champagne fountain, while Willow hovered nervously by the appetizer table. The documentary crew I'd hired was capturing everything, just as planned. "Ms. Rivers," a waiter approached. "Mr. Newman would like to speak with you in the wine cellar." I followed him through the party, past groups of wealthy investors nodding along to Christian's promises of innovation and growth. If they only knew the books were bleeding red. Ryder waited in the cellar, surrounded by oak barrels and history. "They're selling futures on wines we haven't even grown," he said without preamble. "Taking deposits for vintages that don't exist." "How much?" "Nearly $1 million in pre-sales." Christian's desperate. A noise made us both turn. Willow stood in the doorway, pale but determined. "I thought I'd find you here," she said. "We need to talk. Now." Ryder nodded and left us alone. Willow's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. "I found more recordings," she whispered. "Mom didn't just keep your mother's audio diaries. She kept security footage from that last week." The cellar suddenly felt colder. "Show me." The video was grainy but clear enough. My mother in the library arguing with Vincent and Christian, her hands gesturing wildly, tears on her face. "I won't let you do this!" Mum's voice cracked through the speaker. "Claire deserves her inheritance. You can't just—" "Sarah, be reasonable!" Vincent cut in. "Christian knows how to run this business. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking perfectly clearly. I'm going to—" Christian stepped forward, his voice soft but menacing. "You're going to what?" "Tell Claire. Who would believe you over us, over the documentation we have?" The video ended. Willow's hands shook as she put away her phone. "There's more," she said. "Security footage from the night it happened, but it's encrypted. I haven't been able to access it." "I know someone who can," I replied, thinking of Kenneth's tech contacts. "Willow, why are you helping me?" She looked away. "Because I was there. Not in the room, but in the house. I heard things, saw things. I was 17 and too scared to speak up. But now—" Music drifted down from the party above. Christian's voice carried through the stone walls, still spinning his tales of success. "Did they kill her?" I asked, the question I'd held back for years finally escaping. "I don't know for sure, but that night, after it happened, I overheard Christian tell Mom that everything went according to plan." My phone buzzed. A text from Kenneth. "Documents ready. Say when." "There's something else," Willow continued. "The new sustainable wine initiative. It's a scam. They're using it to hide money transfers. I found the offshore accounts." "How did you—" "I'm not just the quiet little sister anymore. I got my MBA. I know how to read between the lines." Footsteps on the cellar stairs made us both freeze. Julia's voice floated down. "Christian, are you down here? The investors are asking questions." Willow pushed me behind a rack of bottles. "Go. Use what I gave you. Make them pay." I slipped out through the back entrance as Julia descended the stairs. Outside, the party continued in full swing. Christian had moved from the stage to work the crowd, champagne in hand. I found a quiet corner and called Kenneth. "How fast can you decrypt a security video?" "Depends. How old?" 12 years, from the estate system." "Give me 24 hours. And Claire, the bank's former loan officer, finally talked. You need to hear this. Tell me. Your father and Christian took out additional loans against the estate. used your mother's forged signature as co-guarantor. That's why they needed those documents changed before they killed her," I finished, watching Christian laugh with his investors. "We can prove the forgery," Kenneth said. "But the murder, that's harder. Just get me that video." I ended the call and looked up at the house, my mother's house, my house. The documentary crew was filming Christian's speech about family values and tradition. Soon they'd be filming something very different. I touched the locket hidden under my dress. "Almost time, Mom. Almost time." Above me, the estate's windows blazed with light, like eyes watching, waiting. In 1 week, those lights would shine on a very different kind of legacy, one written in truth instead of lies. Kenneth's office buzzed with activity as we prepared for what he called D-Day. The decrypted security footage played on his laptop, the final piece of evidence we needed. "Watch this part again," he said, rewinding the video. "Your mother enters the study at 9:47 p.m. Christian and Vincent follow 2 minutes later." The grainy footage showed my mother clutching papers to her chest, backing away as they approached. There was no audio, but her fear was clear. "Fast forward," I said, "to when she—" Kenneth skipped ahead. 11:23 p.m. She leaves the study. Look at her walk. She's disoriented. Drugged, maybe. And 20 minutes later, they found her at the bottom of the stairs. "Accidental fall due to dizzy spell," Kenneth quoted from the medical report. "Convenient." My phone lit up with a text from Ryder. "Christian announcing Big Vineyard rebranding tomorrow. Full press coverage. You need to see this email." The forwarded email made my blood boil. Christian planned to rename the estate, erasing the last trace of my family's name. "Perfect timing," I said. "Kenneth, is everything ready?" He gestured to the stack of legal documents on his desk. "Ownership transfer papers, proof of debt acquisition, evidence of financial fraud, and the forged signatures. Plus," he held up a USB drive, "your mother's full story ready for the press." "The documentary crew?" "We'll be there under the pretense of covering the rebranding. They know to focus on you when you make your entrance." A knock interrupted us. Willow slipped in, looking nervous. "Christian's losing it," she said. "He's been shredding documents all morning. I managed to save these." She dropped a folder on the desk. "Bank statements. He's been embezzling from the Vineyard accounts for years." Kenneth whistled as he reviewed the papers. "This is better than we hoped. Clear paper trail." "There's more," Willow continued. "I found Mom's diary. She wrote about that night, about what they did to your mother. She was there." My hands clenched. "Julia helped them." "She brought the wine. The drugged wine." Willow's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, Claire. I should have told you years ago." I stood, walking to the window. "You're telling me now. That's what matters." My phone buzzed again. An email from the Vineyard's PR team inviting Ms. Rivers to speak at tomorrow's event about potential investment opportunities. "They're really making this easy for us," Kenneth said, reading over my shoulder. "Too easy," I replied. "Willow, does Christian suspect anything?" She shook her head. "He's too focused on impressing the investors, but Julia, she's been asking questions about the bank transfer. Let her ask." I turned to Kenneth. "Is the injunction ready?" He patted a sealed envelope. "Signed by Judge Morrison this morning. The moment you reveal yourself as the true owner, this freezes all their assets." The next hour was a blur of preparation. Kenneth rehearsed the legal proceedings while his team finalised press packets. Willow provided final details about the event layout. "The stage will be here," she indicated on a map. "Christian plans to unveil the new brand name at exactly noon. That's when I'll take the microphone," I said. "Kenneth, you'll be stage left with the documentation. The cameras will have clear sight lines." "And the police?" "Detective Martinez is ready. She'll move in once you present the evidence of financial fraud." Willow touched my arm. "Claire, what about Mom? What happens to her?" I met her eyes. "That depends on her. If she confesses, tells the truth about that night." "She won't," Willow whispered. "She's too proud." "Then she goes down with them." As evening fell, I drove to the vineyard one last time as Ms. Rivers. Ryder met me by the old wine cellar. "Everything's set," he said. "The staff knows to let you through security tomorrow, and Claire—" He hesitated. "Whatever happens, the land is behind you. We all are." I walked the rows of vines, touching the rough bark, remembering my mother's lessons about patience and timing. Tomorrow, these vines would have a new story to tell. Back at my hotel, I laid out my outfit for the confrontation. Not a disguise this time, but a sharp black suit that meant business. The locket rested on top, ready to be worn openly at last. My phone lit up with a final text from Kenneth. "All systems go. Make sure the cameras don't blink when you take what's yours." I touched the locket, opened it to see my mother's smile. "Tomorrow," I whispered. "Tomorrow they'll remember your name." The night stretched ahead, my last night of waiting. By this time tomorrow everything would change. Let them prepare their speeches and champagne. Let them gather their press and their pride. I had gathered something stronger, the truth. And finally, it was time to let it bloom. The rebranding ceremony was in full swing when I arrived. Camera crews positioned themselves around a makeshift stage, while investors mingled over morning mimosas. Christian stood at the podium, practicing his smile. "Ms. Rivers!" he waved me over. "So glad you could make it. I trust you've reviewed our investment proposal." "Very thoroughly," I replied, touching my mother's locket, now worn proudly outside my suit. His eyes flickered to the jewellery, a slight frown crossing his face. Before he could speak, Julia appeared. "Darling, the press wants preliminary photos." She barely glanced at me. "Ms. Rivers, do find a seat. The announcement begins in 10 minutes. I spotted Kenneth near the stage, briefcase ready. Willow stood with the family, her face pale but determined. Ryder positioned himself by the video team, giving me a subtle nod. "Ladies and gentlemen," Christian began, tapping the microphone, "welcome to a historic day. For generations, this land has been known as Richard's Estate. Today, we embrace the future with a new name, a new vision." I moved closer to the stage, Kenneth falling into step beside me. "Ready?" he whispered. "Born ready," Christian continued, his voice swelling with practiced emotion. "And so, it gives me great pleasure to announce our new identity, Golden Valley Vintners, where tradition meets innovation." "Actually," I cut in, stepping onto the stage, "there's been a slight change of plans," the crowd murmured. Christian's smile froze. "Ms. Rivers, this isn't the time—" "My name isn't Rivers." I removed my wig, letting my natural hair fall free. "It's Claire Richards, and this vineyard, it belongs to me." The audience gasped. Julia stood up sharply, knocking over her champagne flute. "Security!" Christian called, but Ryder was already moving, positioning himself between the guards and the stage. "Kenneth," I said calmly, "the papers, please." My lawyer stepped forward, opening his briefcase. "As of last month, Ms. Richards holds controlling interest in all estate debt notes through legal purchase from Pacific Trust Bank. Additionally—" "This is absurd," Christian sputtered. "You have no right." "I have every right." I turned to the documentary crew. "Are you getting this? Good. Because here's where it gets interesting." I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the sound system. My mother's voice filled the air. "They're making me sign everything over. The medication makes it hard to think. Christian says it's for my own good, but I know what they're doing." Julia lunged for the sound controls, but Willow blocked her path. "That's enough," Christian shouted. "This is clearly a fabrication, like the fabricated documents you used to steal my inheritance." I nodded to Kenneth, who projected financial records onto the screen behind us. "Or maybe like these bank statements showing systematic embezzlement." The crowd was dead silent now, with cameras rolling. "And let's not forget the most interesting fabrication," I continued, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "The accident report from the night my mother died. Detective Martinez emerged from the crowd, flanked by officers. "Speaking of that night," the detective said, "we've reopened the investigation based on new evidence." Christian's composure cracked. "Aunt Julia, do something." But Julia was backing away, her face ashen. I never meant—" "Never meant what, Mom?" Willow stepped forward. "Never meant to help them drug her? Never meant to watch her die?" The detective moved toward Julia. "Ma'am, we'd like you to come with us." Chaos erupted. Investors fled as officers moved in. Christian tried to run but was quickly detained. Julia collapsed into a chair, sobbing, as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. I walked to Christian as they led him away. "The property transfers to my control immediately. You have 24 hours to vacate." You think this makes you win? He snarled. You're still alone, still the outsider. No one here will ever accept you. She's not alone, Ryder called out, and the vineyard workers gathered behind him nodded. This land knows its true owner. The documentary crew captured everything. The arrests, the evidence, the shocked faces of the social elite witnessing the fall of their perfect hosts. Later, as the police cars pulled away and the crowd dispersed, I stood in my father's study, my study now. Willow appeared in the doorway. What happens now? She asked softly. Now? I picked up a photo of my mother from the desk. Now we rebuild. The right way. We. If you want to stay, there's a place for you here. For anyone who wants to be part of an honest legacy. She smiled through tears. I'd like that. I looked out over the vineyard where Ryder was already organising the workers for the afternoon shift. The vines stretched endlessly toward the horizon, waiting for a new season of growth. My phone buzzed. Kenneth confirming the property transfer was complete. Everything was mine now. Everything they'd tried to take. But standing there, watching the sun set over my mother's beloved vines, victory felt different than I'd imagined. It felt like a beginning. The media circus lasted weeks. Every morning brought new reporters to the estate gates, hungry for details about the family scandal. I let Kenneth handle most of the interviews while I focused on salvaging what remained of the harvest season. The workers need new equipment, Ryder said, as we walked the rows of vines. Christian let everything deteriorate. Make a list, I replied. Whatever we need, we'll get it. A golf cart approached, carrying Willow and Detective Martinez. We found something, Willow called out, waving a leather-bound book. In the old wine cellar. The detective held up an evidence bag. Your mother's original diary, the complete version. We gathered in the study, my mother's favourite room. Martinez spread the diary pages across the desk while Kenneth took notes. She documented everything, Martinez explained. The threats, the forged documents, even recorded conversations on her phone. She knew they were planning something. But why didn't she run? I asked, touching one of the pages. Why stay? Willow pointed to an entry. Read this. My mother's handwriting was shaky but clear. They threatened Claire's future if I don't cooperate. Vincent says he'll make sure she never sees a penny of her inheritance, never gets near the vineyard again. I have to protect her legacy. I have to find a way. There's more, Martinez said quietly. We found the wine bottle, the one from that night. It still had traces of the sedative they used. Kenneth looked up from his notes. This strengthens the prosecution's case significantly. A knock interrupted us. One of the security guards entered. Ms. Richards, Julia's here. She's asking to speak with you. My aunt sat in her car outside, looking smaller than I remembered. Her designer clothes were replaced by simple slacks and a sweater. Hello, Claire, she said as I approached. I've come to confess. I got into the passenger seat. The car smelled of her familiar perfume, bringing back memories of childhood holidays and family dinners. I'm listening. That night, she began, her hands tight on the steering wheel, your mother discovered Christian had been embezzling money. She threatened to expose everything. Vincent, he ordered me to handle it. By poisoning her? It was supposed to be just enough to keep her quiet, confused. But the dose... Julia's voice cracked. Christian gave her too much. When she fell, we could have called for help. We should have. But you didn't. No, we didn't. She turned to face me. I'm telling the prosecutor everything. About the forged documents, the threats, all of it. I know it doesn't make up for what we did. No, I said, opening the car door. It doesn't. Back inside, Ryder waited with urgent news. The wine critics are here, he said. They want to know if we're still entering the competition next month. I hadn't even thought about the prestigious annual wine competition, something my mother had always valued highly. What do we have ready? Your mother's special reserve. The last batch she personally oversaw. It's been aging perfectly. I followed him to the cellar where the bottles lay waiting, dusty with time but pristine. She called it Truth's Harvest, Ryder said, handling a bottle reverently. Said some wines need time to reveal their full character. Just like revenge, I thought. That evening, I sat alone in the study, surrounded by the day's revelations. My phone buzzed with a text from Kenneth. Christian's taking a plea deal, 15 years minimum. Another message followed from Willow. Mum's testimony is tomorrow. She's telling everything. I opened my laptop, where the documentary footage waited for final editing. The working title glowed on the screen: Inheritance, What They Never Earned. A soft knock made me look up. One of the older vineyard workers, Maria, stood in the doorway. "Miss Claire, we found this while cleaning out the old storage room." She held out a dusty photo album. The pictures inside showed my mother in happier days, teaching me about the vines, showing me how to test the soil. In every image, her smile was real, her love for the land evident. "She always said you had her touch with the grapes," Maria said softly. "That you understood the patience needed to make something beautiful." I touched one of the photos. Did she know about what they were planning? "She knew something was coming. That's why she left so many breadcrumbs for you to follow. She believed you'd find your way back here." Standing at the window, I watched the sunset paint the vineyard gold. Workers were finishing their day, calling out friendly good nights. Ryder and Willow discussed plans for tomorrow's harvest. The land felt alive again, healing. I picked up my mother's portrait from the desk. "This time," I whispered, "they didn't silence us." The victory felt complete, but different than I'd imagined. Not just revenge served cold, but truth finally seeing daylight. Justice finally taking root. Like the best wines, some victories need time to reveal their true nature. And this one was just beginning to bloom. The screening room fell silent as the documentary ended. My mother's face froze on the screen, her last recorded words hanging in the air. "Claire will know what to do with the truth when she finds it." Kenneth switched on the lights. "Well, what do you think?" I looked at the small gathering: Willow, Ryder, Maria, and the core vineyard team. "It's perfect. Release it." "The timing's good," Willow said. "The competition judges arrive tomorrow. This will add weight to our story." My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Martinez. "Julia's testimony finished. Christian's sentence confirmed. 18 years. Ryder cleared his throat. "Speaking of tomorrow, there's something you should see." He led us to the wine cellar, where rows of bottles gleamed in the dim light. But he walked past them to a hidden corner, pulling out a dusty bottle with a handwritten label. "Found this behind a false panel," he said. "Your mother's secret batch. The one she made the summer before." I took the bottle, reading the label in her familiar script. "For Claire, when the truth blooms." "There's more," Maria added, producing an envelope. This was with it. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. "My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, you've found your way home. I knew you would. This wine is special, made from the sweetest grapes of that last summer when you helped me tend the vines. I added something unique. Night-blooming jasmine, your favourite. They said it couldn't be done, that the flower would overwhelm the grape, but like you, it found its perfect balance. They think they can erase us, silence us, bury the truth under papers and lies. But truth, like wine, has its own time. Its own way of surfacing. I'm sorry I couldn't fight them harder. Sorry I couldn't protect you from what was coming. But I left you clues, breadcrumbs, hoping your brilliant mind would piece it together. This bottle isn't just wine, it's our story. Share it when you're ready. Let them taste what they tried to destroy. All my love, Mom." Willow touched my shoulder. "We should serve this tomorrow. Let the judges taste it." "Not just the judges," I said. "Everyone. This story belongs to all of us now." The next morning, the estate buzzed with activity. Critics and judges arrived, notebooks ready. Camera crews set up for the documentary's premiere screening. Even some of our harshest industry competitors came, curious about the vineyard that had survived scandal. I stood on the same stage where I'd exposed Christian, but this time to tell a different story. "Welcome to Truth's Harvest," I began. "Today isn't just about wine, it's about legacy. Real legacy, built on honest soil." The documentary played on outdoor screens while servers circulated with my mother's special vintage. I watched faces change as they sipped. Surprise, then pleasure, then something deeper. "This is extraordinary," one judge whispered. "The complexity. How did you achieve this balance?" "My mother's recipe," I said. "She knew some flowers only bloom in darkness." Ryder appeared with news. "We just got word. We won. Best vintage, best innovation, and," he grinned, "best new direction." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. But I was watching the workers, their proud smiles, their knowing nods. They understood what this really meant. Later, As the celebration continued, I found a quiet moment in the study. The documentary played on my laptop, cycling through family photos, evidence files, confession recordings. The truth finally uncorked. Willow entered, carrying 2 glasses of our winning wine. "To your mother," she said, offering one to me. "To truth," I replied, "however long it takes to bloom." We sipped in comfortable silence until Ryder knocked. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to see." He led us to the vineyard's highest point, where workers had gathered. As the sun set, they raised their glasses, not in celebration, but in quiet remembrance. Maria stepped forward. "We planted something special. Look." Between the vines, night-blooming jasmine had taken root, its white flowers opening to the evening air, the same flowers my mother had used in her final vintage. "The flowers will protect the grapes," Maria explained. "Like your mother protected you. Every harvest will carry her touch now." I touched a jasmine blossom, its perfume mixing with the vineyard's earthier scents. Perfect balance, just like she'd said. My phone lit up. The documentary had gone live. Comments and shares were already flooding in. The truth was spreading, flowing like wine. But standing there, watching darkness fall over my mother's beloved vines, I realised something. Revenge might have brought me home, but it wasn't what would keep me here. That would be the work. The honest, patient work of growing something real, something true. I raised my glass to the stars emerging above us. To next season's harvest. The workers raised theirs in return, their voices joining mine. To next season's harvest. In the distance, jasmine bloomed in the darkness, adding its secret sweetness to the night air,